What is up, YouTube? And Instagram and Facebook and 585 Recovery and wherever else I upload this. This is part 2 to my story. Sorry, I should have done this before I started recording, but I forgot about it until I pushed record. I always have to turn off my case fans in my computer and turn my air conditioner off because they're really loud. So, where to begin? Well, how about I begin where I left off? If people would stop messaging me, that'd be great. So, where I left off, well, first of all, I rewatched that video. And first of all, I realized that my face was way too close to the camera the entire time. But if I back up where I would think would be like a normal distance, I feel like you're not going to be able to hear me as good. So that's why I screwed up a little bit. Plus, I'm sitting at my desk right now, and it's just easier for me to put my arms right here. Sorry, alright. I have ADHD really bad. It's actually really hard to concentrate on things, especially when I'm first getting into it. But give me a second here, and I'll, once I start talking, I'll be able to concentrate. I'm just going to not respond anymore. Maybe they'll make it so he stops texting me. So, there was a lot of things in the first, in part 1 that I realized were missing, or things that were inaccurate as far as like timelines and stuff like that. But that's besides the point. The point of me going all the way back to my childhood with everything was to establish that basically the reason why I fell in love so hard with drugs was because there was always a feeling of I don't really know how to say it without me sounding like a weirdo. I'll say it. I'll say what it is. Feelings of inadequacies. Someone has offered to meet up with me over a beer. Obviously, they don't know me very well. I don't drink there, guy. The feelings of inadequacies and not feeling loved as a kid, and like it sounds stupid coming out of my mouth, like, oh, I wasn't loved as a kid. Like that's something you say like joking around with, when someone's a douche, like, oh, what, were you not loved enough as a child? So it sounds weird coming out of my mouth when I'm talking about myself and being very serious, but in all reality, that's exactly what it was. I know my parents did love me. It's not that, it was just that then I didn't feel it. Like, I know they said they loved me, but I did not feel that love. It's kind of hard to feel loved when, like my mother, I know, especially now as an adult, I know that pretty much every single thing she's ever done, she did with either the right intentions or with kind of like a neutral intention. Like I'd put money on the fact that she did not purposely do anything to hurt me, or at least like mentally, or like fuck my head up in the long run. Just because I know my mother, and that's not the type of person that she is. But that doesn't change the fact that a lot of things that she did or things that she allowed to happen were very fucked up, and it did fuck my head up, and still fucked my head up. You know, like there's a few times in your life where like key development points, which it sets up how your brain is wired and what you're going to do, what you're interested in for the rest of your life. And during every single one of those key development points, I was going through something very, very bad in my life. So that did fuck the rest of my life up. I would never tell them this, my mom or my dad, but in my eyes, they're at least partly responsible for the reason why my little brothers are dead. And that's how I view it, and that's just me being honest, you know, to the camera. I would never tell them that, and you know, because I don't want to, you know, that would crush them. You know, not only if they felt that was it, but if they felt that that's how I felt, then that would hurt. And that's not my intention of this video. So it's not something I would go rubbing in anybody's face or anything. But I'm just being honest. That's kind of the one of the points of this video is just, you know, unedited, unscripted, just me talking, and that's really how I feel. A lot of shit that they did had lifelong repercussions, and for two of my little brothers, a lot of those things at least they were a factor in the reason why they were overdosed and why they died. Obviously, you know, my parents didn't hold them down and stick a needle in their arm and force them to do drugs. You know, it was their own choice that ultimately was the cause of their deaths. But, you know, why'd they make that choice? You know, why were they always trying to run from something? Why were they always trying to be numb? Obviously, because they were addicts. You know, addicts do stupid shit like that. So it's not, you know, it's not like even the main reason why they're gone. But even if it's, you know, 0.0001%, then it's still partially the reason. And that's how I look at it. I'm not saying it's any like huge part of it, but it's definitely semi-responsible. And in that, it's not just them. It's really, if you want to look at it from that perspective, it's everybody. Everybody who's ever said that they would be there for them and weren't. Everybody that's ever, you know, done or said anything that they've held on to in their mind as like a negative thing. Anybody who's ever fucked them over. Any girlfriend that's ever betrayed them. You know, like there's a lot of people that are responsible. So, including myself, I'm sure there's been something in my life that, you know, that I've done that they were holding on to in their hearts that ate at them, because that's how I am. I'm you know, they're a lot like me, and that's how I do things. I don't usually like bringing things up like that and like, you know, working it out, or, you know, whatever you want to whatever you want to classify it as. But there is a lot of things in my heart that pretty much that I hold on to, that I would rather, I don't want to deal with the drama of bringing it up and trying to work it out, because it's not going to work anything out. You know, what happened, and, you know, the people that betrayed me did, the people that fucked me over did, you know, the people that lied to me, or all the chicks that broke my heart, or the people that stole from me, or, you know, like all that shit happened. Nothing's going to take that away, so why bring it up, you know, and potentially make more of an issue out of it when you could just pretty much bury it and leave it alone. But, you know, if it was one or two things, that wouldn't be an issue. But when it's, you know, in my case, 32 years of this shit, of people doing shit like that, and it tends to add up. But that's pretty much where I was going with, sorry, I know I'm all over the place. It's the hard part about having ADHD and trying to do things like this unscripted and unedited is I'm just talking here, whatever pops into my head. So I'll catch myself once in a while, and I'll realize that I'm like flip-flopping back and forth between stories, and then like starting one story and then moving on to something else and not finishing the story, and like that's how my brain works. So it's actually kind of hard, but I figured it would this video would mean more. It would be more powerful if it was unscripted and it was just, you know, one take, no edits, and it was just, you know, speak my version of the truth, and, you know, upload it for people to hopefully watch and or hear and be able to anything, even relate to anything. Then that would be a potentially helpful thing. But that's where I was going with the where I left off. So, you know, the reason why I brought up everything with my childhood and all that stuff is because I wanted to establish that the reason why I fell into drugs so hard was because there was always that feeling of not being good enough, or not being loved, not being wanted. You know, and it's, as time goes on, it's always more and more stuff. It's not just like, you know, I had a shitty couple years as a kid, and then, you know, I hit 18, boom, everything was good, and my life got better, and now there's nothing else to, you know, worry about. It's, you know, more like as far back as I can remember with being a kid, it was pretty shitty. And then as I was a teenager, more shitty things happened. And then I was a young adult, more shitty things happened. And then as an adult, more shitty things happened. And now, you know, even today, I'm 32 years old. Well, not today, but, you know, now-ish in the timeline, more and more shitty things are happening. So it's not like things go away or things stop hurting. Like, we just, you know, nothing ever stops hurting. It's just we learn how to deal with it. So, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked again. So, we've established that I had a pretty shitty childhood, and, you know, a bunch of things have happened that I was trying to run away from, and that was pretty much why it was so easy to fall into drugs so hard. First weed, and then, you know, there was a period of time where I did a bunch of acid and mushrooms and stuff like that, and then there was coke, and then there was smoked crack for a couple of years, and then, you know, but all that stuff, like, yeah, I did a lot of it, but it was only ever, you know, when I had the money, or if it was around at a party or something like that. Heroin, not even pills, heroin specifically, heroin and on, so heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, stuff like that. That is where I could actually say, like, yes, I was an actual drug addict. There's no denying it, because nothing had a grip on me like heroin did. And partially due to the fact that I was always trying to run from something, and heroin just completely numbed everything out. But also, obviously, I became an addict because I was physically addicted to it, and I was dope sick if I didn't do it. So, where I left off in the last video was, I think I said it like 6 times in this video already. Where I left off in the last video was I was sitting on the side of a cliff in the gorge in Rochester. Just bought a bundle of coke and a bundle of dope. For those that don't know, a bundle is 10 bags, and one bag is about 0.1, usually 0.1 of a gram. It usually varies. Sometimes they're 0.07, 0.08, sometimes they're 1.2, 1.3. But 0.1 is like the norm. So a bundle should be anyway, a gram. If you get 10 bags and they're 0.1. So shooting 1 gram of heroin and 1 gram of coke at the same time is enough to kill anybody. If anybody in the world shot that much drugs at one time when their body was not addicted to it, they would immediately be dead. They would likely be dead before they hit the ground. If they were standing up and they shot it, by the time they hit the ground, they'd be deceased. But for me, you know, like I said, I was completely miserable. I was completely sick of my life. I hated everything. I hated everyone. I hated, you know, myself for allowing me to get that bad. And I didn't know how to get clean. So I took the only route that I could to stop the pain, because now there was the pain of an entire life of bullshit and the pain of addiction. And either one of those in themselves is horrible, but when you combine them, it's a real bad story. So not only does heroin numb all the pain, but eventually it'll also numb everything. Even when you're not high, you're numb to the world. You stop loving, you stop caring, I stopped even caring about sex. Actually, towards the end, the only time I did have sex was, I was friends with a stripper I've known for a while, and she'd come over and we'd get high and, fool around for 9 hours straight, and then do drugs for the rest of the night. And it was a very fun and very bad time of my life, obviously. I think every guy wants to bang a stripper, multiple times a day for a couple of years straight. It's like a dream. But at the same time, I say that joking, by the way, well, half joking. At the same time, I was so numb to all the good stuff of life that, it just put me in a very negative, bad, pessimistic mood 24/7. So much to the point where I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle when I was not high and dope sick, and when I was high, all it did was give me some temporary relief, but my tolerance was so high to the drugs that I had to do so much to even get high. It was pretty insane. But I was sitting on Seth Green in the gorge, sitting on the side of a cliff, and I shot up in my neck. I think it was my neck, either my neck or my arm, I can't remember which one. But I remember pushing the plunger. Everything went black while I was still conscious. I remember that, but it was like a split second. And then I woke up like halfway down that cliff. Anybody who's ever been there, they know it's like a really very steep, very shitty thing to fall down if you do fall down it. And I did. I passed out, fell off the side of the cliff, then rolled down the hill at the bottom, and luckily I did not fall into the river and drowned. Probably got stuck on a tree or something, but when I first woke up, I remember thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, why am I laying on the ground in the dark, in the woods? And then, I sat up, still kind of dizzy, still very high. And, slowly my memory came back to what just happened. And all my muscles were sore, really stiff and really sore. And I read in Nikki Sixx's Heroin Diaries that one of the times that he overdosed and died, someone threw him in a dumpster while he was dead. And he said that once you're dead and your heart stops, your muscles all start to tighten up. And I felt exactly what he was talking about, because they really do. It's really stiff, like when you just got done working out. And I had to walk back up that hill being, I hurt so bad. I had to walk back up the hill, and then, now I'm all wet because I was, partially covered in snow. This was in the middle of the winter. It was a really wet, oh my gosh. It was a really wet snow, and I was freezing. And I remember thinking, now I'm in the same boat that I was just in. What changed? Now I just wasted 10 bags that, I could have at least saved 2 or 3 for the morning, and then, not been sick in the morning. So I called 911, and I told them, 911, what's your emergency? And they're well, the emergency is if somebody doesn't come get me right the fuck now, I'm going to go kill myself. Obviously, I did not tell them that I just tried. So an ambulance did show up. Cops showed up first, and they searched me, and I had a knife on me and stuff like that. And the cop was actually kind of a dick. But they put me in the ambulance. They brought me to RGH, I think. And that was the first time that I've ever been to a hospital, and they actually were some help. Because I've been there several times from just being sick and trying to get help. Even after I knew that going to the hospital was not going to be any help. Still a couple times I was just didn't know where to go or what to do. I still called 911 and I still went again anyway, hoping that something different would happen, and it never did. But this one time something different did happen. While I was there, they kept me overnight. While I was there, whoever came to interview me, I told them exactly what was going on. I was like, listen, I'm an addict. I hate it. I despise everything about it. And I either need help or I need to die. And so they gave me an appointment with Evelyn Brandon, which is a outpatient facility on Lake Ave. It's actually where I go now for outpatient, but unrelated to that. They gave me an appointment with there for like some type of interview or evaluation or something. So the next morning they released me out of the hospital. I walk from the hospital to Evelyn Brandon, which isn't that far, right up 104 and then right up Lake Ave. It's, took a little while, but not too bad. So basically they see me there, and they gave me a appointment with SBH, Syracuse Behavioral Health. Now it's called something else. I can never remember the name of it, actually. Real quick, I'll Google it. So I can give you guys, Helio, that's what it's called now. Just so if anybody was looking for a detox, something like that, they would know where to go. It's called Helio Health. It's 1350 University Ave. It's right by University and like Culver, kind of up a little bit, but near there. So he gave me an appointment for there, and it was for like a week or 6 days later, something like that. So I go to detox. I go to my dad's for like the next week. Pack a couple clothes and stuff like that. Go to SBH, and SBH is awesome, or Helio. I'm going to refer to it as SBH because that's what I know it is. So Helio Health, or SBH, is awesome. That is I wish every facility was like that. The food is good. Every room has either 1 or 2 beds. Every bed has its own flat screen TV and a remote, like you plug into the wall. It's like a hospital remote that has like the speaker on the remote, with cable. There's cable there. Great food. It's co-ed, which going in there, I didn't realize that I was going to give a shit about, but give any opiate addict like a good week of being clean, and their nerves are going to start coming back, and they're going to start realizing how certain things that were lacking were now very important. So since I'm being honest, I might as well blow myself in. It's co-ed, and there's a couple blind spots on the cameras, and every time I've been to SBH, I've screwed some random chick. 2 or 3 of them I ended up dating when I got out, but that's later. So I go to SBH. I like it. They put me on Suboxone and starts with a V. It's a benzo. It starts with a V. Valium. Benzo and Valium, or Suboxone and Valium. So not only was I in this very comfortable situation, I'm not freezing. They have washer and dryer there, good food. I'm washing all my clothes. Everything's good and clean. They had good showers. I'm shaving again and taking care of myself again. I was only there for like 16, or I think the first time I was there for like 23 days or something like that. It was a long time, but usually it's like 10 days, 15 days. So, skipping all the details of that, SBH is just a detox facility. You go there, you detox off your drugs, and then you go to inpatient. So, since this is my first experience ever doing anything with any type of inpatient or anything like that, that place is called SBH, and basically they let you pick where you want to go, and there's actually a lot of options. So I figured, since this is SBH and I love this facility, I'm going to go to the SBH in Syracuse. I figured they had the same name. It was the same organization. I figured it would be the same program. It was actually a storm. It was a snowstorm when I left detox to get to Syracuse, because I was supposed to be there by like 1 o'clock or something. We ended up getting there at like 3 because the roads were so bad. They set you up with transportation there, which was cool. So I get to SBH in Syracuse, and they do all the paperwork, the drug test, your count of your Suboxone, the everything, the initial intake. So I get into my room, actually really nice rooms. I was actually the first person in my room after they did a remodel. They were actually still remodeling when I got there, but my room was done. So I had a literally brand new, spanking clean, fresh, very nice room. It was 3 beds in a room, but I was the only person in it. So, did my little program, whatever, eat dinner, getting used to the program. It's not at all like SBH, the detox, but it's still nice. There's no TVs in the room or anything like that, but it's still nice. It's co-ed, but you're not even allowed to even look at the women, which kind of sucked, but whatever. I was there to get clean, not to fuck random broads. So, that night, my first night, the med cart comes around, and I look at my chart. All the nurses handed me my Suboxone. I take my Suboxone, and I look at my chart, and I see that it says 8. I'm supposed to be getting an 8 in the morning and an 8 at night, 8 milligram. 8 milligram strip in the morning and 8 milligram strip at night. So it said, the first day 8, second day 8, third day 6, then 4, then 3, and then a line, which means they're discontinuing it. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you taking me off Suboxone? And they're like, oh, I don't know. You're going to have to talk to admin or someone about that tomorrow. I'm like, okay, like that's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. You guys realize a doctor, like a Suboxone doctor, prescribed me this medication, right? Like in that dose, like I'm going to be leaving here and going to outpatient and continuing Suboxone on the street. Like you guys are fucking up my entire recovery plan. You guys are going to make me end up fucking using again because of whatever politics you guys are, doing. So basically the nurse didn't give a shit or didn't care, or both. So the next day I wake up, I take my 8 milligram strip, we go have breakfast, and then finally I was able to get a hold of somebody in the admin wing. So they bring me down to the admin wing, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And the director of the facility told me, like, well, we do not prescribe Suboxone to people who abuse benzos, and you had benzos in your system. I was like, are you fucking retarded? Like, yeah, I had benzos in my system because your organization gave them to me. SBH in Rochester, they give everybody benzos and Suboxone. That's what they do. I don't abuse benzos. I've taken benzos on the street like 3 times. Like literally 3 times, and every single time I blacked out, forget about a week of my life, and that's it. Don't touch them again for a couple of years. I don't enjoy benzos. Like if somebody gave me a handful of Valium or anything like that, they'd probably either sit in a drawer or I'd flush them, or if it was back when I was using, I would have sold them. Like I really legitimately don't have a problem with benzos, never did. So they really didn't give a shit that it was SBH that prescribed me the benzos. All they knew is that I had benzos in my system, and they don't prescribe benzos and Suboxone together because that is one of the very, very few ways that you can overdose and die on Suboxone, is if you are also taking benzos. But that is in like a very extreme scenario, you know, like that doesn't happen. You would need to pretty much already be overdosing on benzos and then take Suboxone, and then it just pushes you over the edge and you die. So I told them, like, okay, you guys can either fix that or I'm going to leave. So they said, well, you're free to leave. You can leave whenever you want. No one's holding you here. I'm like, okay, call me a cab. So they called me a cab. I took a cab back to the city. I got dropped off at the transit center, and I called my dealer immediately. I also called SBH in Rochester, and I left a message freaking out. I was like, told them what happened. And you know, usually it's like a week, like one time. It's only happened once, but I did wait 3 months one time to get into SBH. But usually it's about a week, a little more than a week, sometimes 2 weeks, depending on how like the flow is. Like around winter time, it's always more because, you know, during the summer people can stay under bridges or in their car or, you know, wherever. But during the winter, like now it's time to, you know, either legitimately get clean or they're just playing the system and they need somewhere to stay. So, you know, they're going through the program. But either way, they have like no beds available during the winter. This was during the winter. So they call me back right as I'm copping from my dealer, right as I'm buying heroin off of him. And they basically said, like, wow, that's bullshit. I can't believe it. Can you come back in today? And I was like, yeah, I can. So I went to a friend's house that used to live off of East Ave. I did all my drugs there, and then went back to SBH and tried it again. This time, while I'm in SBH, I was in there with my buddy Joe Cosgrove, my buddy Joe Pratt. There was a bunch of people in there that I knew from the street or that knew my family, or, you know, there was like 5 or 6 people, which was pretty cool. And it's, you know, it's not a huge facility. They only have like probably 25 beds, if that, you know, so it's not a big facility. So to be in there with, you know, that many people that you know was actually very rare and very cool. So while I'm in there this time, like now I have more of an understanding of how this, you know, how these programs actually work. I realized that some of them do legitimately care about getting people clean, and, you know, other programs, they are pretty much just set up to get your insurance money, and that's their main goal, is to make money. With all of them, they want to make money. It's a business. Businesses need money to stay in business. So it's you know, no surprise that it's all based around making money. But you can make money and you can, you know, do your job as far as helping people that legitimately want to get clean. And I was one of those people that legitimately wanted to get clean. So this time when when I was in SBH, there was this girl there smoking hot. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know how that works with, you know, like putting things in your internet with other people's names, but she actually started talking to me. But this girl was gorgeous, like drop dead freaking gorgeous, like supermodel quality hot. So we're, you know, making out in the bathrooms, and I actually did not screw her in SBH because we were talking for a while, you know, sending notes back and forth. We were basically with each other 24/7 for, you know, 2 weeks straight. So, and we're both getting clean. Both of our heads are fucked up, and you know, we thought we were in love or whatever. We were at least in lust. So we exchanged numbers. She gets out of SBH and goes home. I get out of SBH and go to Clifton Springs, inpatient. So I'm talking to this chick every day on the phone, or every other day. And basically we were getting our whole life figured out of what we want to do. And it, you know, basically we're gonna move in together. We're going to do recovery together, go to meetings, You know, she owned a business. I had my little tattoo thing that I was doing. Vape break. So I thought I was happy. Like Clifton Springs inpatient went really good. I had this gorgeous girlfriend. I get out. I move in with her. She had her own apartment. I help her with her business. She had a dog walking business, and you know, every day we go wake up in the morning, you know, drink coffee, go to a meeting, go pick up all of her dogs, go walk them all. Basically, we just walked around parks and trails and stuff all day long, just talking and getting to know each other better and better and better. Do I say this next part? Well, I might as well. I'm being honest. And I've never really been one to, especially as an adult, give all that much power to what random people think about me, so fuck it. So when I was in Clifton Springs, they started me on fluoxetine, which is basically like a generic Prozac for depression. It did not work for depression. It actually made me more depressed. And not only did it make me more depressed, it made me like almost sad to the point of like being suicidal. And on top of that, it made it so I couldn't get my dick hard. Pretty embarrassing thing to say, but I could not get my dick hard whenever I took these pills. It just wouldn't happen, which obviously caused a lot of tension in between me and this, you know, gorgeous chick that I was with. And she was a freak. Like, she loved sex as much as I did, which was amazing. I've seen like memes and posts on Facebook and stuff that says every man thinks they want a freak until they meet a freak or something like that. But like, no, I've had a couple of them, and that's ideal. But that's what started the tension in our relationship, was the fact that it wasn't as shallow as, well, partially, you know, basically she wanted me to fuck her, and at times I couldn't. I would try, and it just wouldn't work. You know, I'd have to slam my dick around and yell at it. Nothing would work. The reason why that caused so much tension was because she was, I don't know why, she was fucking gorgeous. Perfect body, perfect face, long black hair, like perfect everything. But she was so self-conscious and so insecure that when that happened and, you know, I couldn't screw her, she thought it was because there was something wrong with her. And I explained to her that, no, that's not the case at all. It's these fucking pills. And if I stop taking them, I will go crazy. And I was basically afraid to go back to where I was mentally, you know, before I got clean. I didn't realize then that it was these drugs that were causing, you know, so much problems. So basically, you know, we got into a couple real bad fights. Eventually, I flushed all my pills down the toilet because I couldn't handle, one, not having sex, and two, all the drama, and three, ruining my relationship, and four, making her feel like, you know, there was something wrong with her when there wasn't, physically at least. So I flushed the pills down the toilet. The sex was perfectly fine once again, and still is to this day. You know, just putting it out there. There's nothing wrong with me. It was these pills. So we ended up getting into a couple real bad fights. I never put my hands on her. She never put her hands on me. But verbally, we were both pretty much saying every mean thing we could possibly say to each other, trying to hurt each other, and that's not healthy. It was putting way too much stress on me. Me and her were both in you know, new, fresh recovery. So around this time, I was working at this tattoo place, making not great money, but enough to survive off of. enough to, pay half the rent and, stuff like that. Or, whatever, internet or Genie, whatever other bill came up. So I had a bunch of money in my pocket. One morning we get into a really, really horrible fight. And I'm like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, fuck you. I pack all my shit up, and which was only like a tote of clothes and like, a couple other things. I pack my shit up. I tell her to drop me off at work in the city, and she doesn't. She brings me to the city and then just drops me off at some random Wilson Farms and basically says, fuck off. So I was like, cool with me. Fuck off. Have a good life, you fucking whore. Whatever I said. And I just said, fuck it. And once I got to my job, I called up my dealer, who just happened to be right around the corner, and bought like $300 or $400 worth of drugs. And I was not completely trying to kill myself that time, but I was, halfway hoping that that would end it. So again, I did a lot of drugs, put a lot of drugs in the needle, shot it up, didn't overdose, didn't even pass out, but I did get very, very sick, throwing up all over the place. And then that was the first time I ever relapsed, because that was the first time I ever got clean. Unless you count the first time I was in detox and all that, but this is the first time I was on the street and, clean, doing a program, going to meetings, doing the steps, stuff like that. And then something happened and I got high. So in my mind, that's my first relapse. So to sum up the next couple months, we got back together and we broke up. And we got back together and we broke up. We got back together, we broke up. And we got back together, we broke up. We got back together. And one of the times we got back together, we're driving to the city to go pick up her dogs. And because it was actually weird. We actually had the same clean date. We didn't know each other when we got clean the first time, obviously. It just so happened that we both had the same clean date. So she starts this rant about how it's bullshit that I got to have fun and get high and she doesn't, and blah, blah, blah. And basically she said, do you want to go get high? And I said, well, I'm an addict. I always want to get high. And so she said, okay, call your dealer. So I did. Called my dealer up. We went and copped. We went back to her house. We got high. And that turned into getting high every single day, like it always does. There's no such thing as just doing it one more time. It turns immediately back into, jumping right back full swing into being a junkie. So we got high together for a while. Eventually she tapped out all of her funds. I tapped out all of my funds. Now we're not paying the bills. Internet gets shut off, and then, this gets shut off, and that gets shut off, and so it's just adding more and more stress to everything. So I start boosting again. I run into a Best Buy. I steal a bunch of SD cards because they were in a very small package, and they were expensive. The ones I was stealing were like $400, and they were in a package, the size of a big cell phone, but in a flat package, so they're very, very easy to steal. So, I'd steal, as many as they had on the shelf at a time, 15, 20 of them. If I would have got caught, I would have been fucked. That's an immediate felony. So, steal from the one in Greece, and the next day I steal stuff from the one in Victor, allegedly, and took the stuff from Victor back to the Greece store to try and return it to get a gift card to pawn the gift card, because that would have been more money. So while I'm in there, they're looking it up on the computer, trying to find my receipt, which I'm bullshitting. I'm just hoping that somebody, I only brought in like 2 of them, And I'm hoping that somebody bought 2 of them, and I could have been like, oh yeah, see that right there, that's me. So while I'm doing that, I get a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's 2 grease police. They knew what was going on. They saw me steal, these 2 things from their grease store yesterday, and now I'm returning them the next day. That's what they saw. Whatever, I'll leave it at that. So I got arrested for Class A misdemeanor. I go to jail, sit in jail, I'm dope sick in jail. Which was pretty fucking horrible, but wasn't all that excruciating because I wasn't that bad into heroin yet. I was still dope sick, and I was still, very, very, very miserable, but it was not all that horrible. So I ended up getting ROR'd like a couple days. I was only in there for like a week. Get out, and then basically within the next month, I was arrested like 3 or 4 more times for boosting. And one time I got bailed out. One time I got ROR'd. One time something else happened. And the last time they wrapped up all my charges into one court case, and they gave me probation. So now I'm on probation. I'm still doing dope. So she ends up, while I was in jail the last time, she ended up going back to rehab. Me and her were actually both living with my dad. She goes to rehab. When I get out of jail, she's in rehab. And then I kept using. She got clean. And eventually the phone calls got less and less and less. And the last time she called me, she's like, listen, I can hear it in your voice that you're still getting high. And I'm thinking I'm slick. I'm thinking she's retarded. I'm like, no, I'm not high at all. What do you mean? Huh? What? Yeah, no, I'm not high. So, obviously I was retarded. She knew exactly what was going on. And basically we broke up for good because she was serious about getting clean and I was still getting high. So makes perfect sense that I would have done the same thing, and I actually have in the past. Recently, actually, the chick that I was messing with was still getting high when I was getting clean, so I couldn't mess with her anymore. It was actually that stripper that that I was messing with all of last summer, or 2 summers ago now. So I continued getting high for a while. At some point, around this time in my life, it's kind of hard to keep track of like when things happen and dates and stuff, but I can keep things, in a relatively accurate timeline. So it was right back to the same boat that I was in before, about being miserable. I was really bad and doing dope again. I go to detox. I was there for a while. I get clean. I go to Conifer Park in Schenectady. I'm there for inpatient. It was like a 28-day program, and I was actually liking it. Conifer is actually kind of hood, like the way it's set up, like the people that go there, because you got people from Albany or New York City or Schenectady, and from what I hear, like Schenectady is actually a pretty gangster little town too. So there's people just getting out of prison. There's like a bunch of gang members in there. There's people fighting every day and people smoking in the bathrooms, even though they're not allowed to. And like for some reason, like I don't know if it's just like the drama or the chaos, but I enjoy being in places like that. Like I really can't stand being all like uptight, upper class, uppity, poke your nose up because you're better than everybody type of places. Like I like being in the nitty gritty. So I actually loved it there. I was doing really good because I loved it there. While I was there, I got a call, or my counselor walked up to me and she was like, hey, your sister's freaking out. She wants you to call her. So I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, Joe is in jail. Tony's in prison. I was like the only thing I could possibly think of that why she would be freaking out so much is that Nick overdosed. Like, but Nick only ever sniffed dope. Nick has never used a needle. So, like, what could possibly be so bad? Like, if Nick did overdose, like, he's sitting in the hospital and he's fine. He's just waiting to be released, you know. Jenna's overreacting. That's the thought that went through my head. So I go into the staff office while a couple staff are eating lunch, and I use their phone, and I call Jenna. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she's crying. And she's like, well, Tony got out of prison this morning, and now he's in a coma in the hospital, not going to make it. So I freaked out. I smashed the phone. I punched a corner off the table, which, you know, doesn't really mean much. It was like a particle board, pretty shitty table, but still punched the table off of it. Kicked the door open, you know, smashed a bunch of stuff in the office. Tried to kick my door open, but it was like a really thick wood, and I almost broke my foot, to be honest with you. Slammed my door open, go into my room, and I just trash everything in my room while I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They call it code blue, which is a fight, which was kind of weird because I wasn't fighting. It was just me freaking out. My little brother's in a coma, not going to make it. So basically, like, a bunch of staff, a bunch of counselors, a bunch of other people, they all come in. And once I was finally able to get words out in between sobbing uncontrollably, I explained to them what just happened. And I told them, basically, I can't be here. I need to leave. I need to go. So I'm throwing all my shit in a duffel bag, like, as I'm talking to them, and they could have just said, well, you're leaving the program early, so fuck you. You know, like they do. That's what they do. If you leave the program early, you basically fend for yourself. If you complete the program, now you're eligible for, you know, getting a cab ride and bus rides and all this other stuff. But because they understood the situation I was in, and because I was doing so good in that program, they actually paid for a cab to bring me from Schenectady to wherever I was, Albany maybe, to a Greyhound station. And then they paid for the Greyhound ticket to get from wherever that was to Rochester. So it was like a 6-hour Greyhound ride. And make it back to the city. See my little brother laying there on the bed with tubes running out of his mouth and down his nose and hooked up to machines, and I get the full story of what happened. And basically, he got out of prison and went to go get high one last time, and that one last time he overdosed. They found him behind an abandoned house. I'm still not 100% sure on what actually happened there. I heard so many conflicting stories that it's hard to actually know the real story of what happened. But the story that I think happened is he was with somebody. They got high together. Tony overdosed. The person he was with dragged him behind the building and then either called 911 to let them know and then left, or just left. And if he just left, then there was a fire truck that just so happened to be driving by, saw basically legs sticking out from behind a building, went over there, saw him, gave him Narcan, didn't work, gave him, did all their stuff that they could do, and basically he was dead for so long without oxygen going to his brain that his brain swelled, and it swelled so bad that it severed his brainstem. So there was a 0% chance of him coming back. And the only reason they were keeping him on a respirator and keeping his body alive was because they wanted us to agree to donate his organs, which I was against, but everybody else was all for it. So I agreed with it because I wasn't going to be the only one that was, that was holding up this good decision that everybody was trying to make, or what they thought was a good decision. So they donated his organs. We made a GoFundMe account for the funeral because none of us had any money. I do not come from money. Pretty much everything I've ever had in my life that I wanted, I had to get myself. Other than obviously when I was a little kid, my parents fed me and clothed me and stuff like that. But pretty much from about 17 on, I was, besides when I was living with family, I was on my own. But even when I was living with family, I would eat dinner, there. But, to eat most of the time, I was taking care of myself. To get clothes or buy computers or phones or stereos or, Walkmans or whatever, it was all me taking care of myself. And the same thing with pretty much everybody else in my family. Nobody really had money like that. Definitely not enough to pay for a funeral. So regardless of what we wanted to happen, we were forced to cremate him because that was cheaper. So we cremated my little brother. He died on December 12th, or I think it was the 12th, 2016, right before Christmas. So needless to say, that was a pretty shitty Christmas. So backtrack a little bit. While he's in the hospital, when I realized that he wasn't waking up, basically I once again said fuck it, and I went and got high, and that turned right back into me using every single day. Pretty much for the next 2 years straight. I don't think I spent more than a day or two without doing drugs. But everything happens for a reason. And I had to get high. It was literally not physically possible for me to deal with the death of my little brother without getting high. The depression and the sadness and just the mental torment that I was in was brought to a whole new level. And I thought I knew what pain was before, with having a real shitty childhood and begging God to kill me. Losing my first son, losing all my other sons. I have 4 kids, by the way, and every single one of them were taken away from me. Not because of actions that were my fault. They were all taken away from me because of something somebody else did. And then I tried to replace the love that I lost, from losing my kids and losing that girl that I was with for 7 years. I tried to replace that love with finding somewhere else to get it from. So, and my next girlfriend, I thought I had it. And I tried to use her to fill that piece of my soul that was missing. And it did not work. And she fucked me over, and we broke up, and now I'm left with even more of a hole in my soul and in my heart. And then my next girlfriend, it's the same thing. And the next girlfriend was the same thing. And then that chick I met in rehab was the same thing. And then the girlfriend I had after her was the same thing. Always trying to fill that torment that I have in my soul with something. First it was women, then it was drugs and women, and then it was just drugs, and now it's nothing. Now there's a hole in my heart and in my soul that I'm incapable of filling. And then with the death of my little brother Tony, it just added to it in ways that were indescribable. It was pain to a level that I didn't think existed. So I needed to get high. I don't know what I would have done. You know, kill every drug dealer in Rochester, kill myself. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. But I needed that heroin to numb me. So I did. It did for the next 2 years. And it was right back to being where I always was. But now worse. Because now it's fentanyl. Now 100% raw heroin is not strong enough. I needed to do 5 bags of fentanyl just to not be dope sick. And now fentanyl is everywhere, which a lot of people hate, obviously. It's killing people left and right, but for me it was perfect, and for a lot of other people it was perfect. That's actually why fentanyl is so popular and why it's everywhere, is because there's very few people that are, well, comparatively, there's very few people that are just trying heroin for the first time, you know, compared to the amount of people that are, you know, well-established addicts, you can call it that, you know, who have a high tolerance and who need fentanyl in order to not be sick and to get high. So when you do fentanyl, since it's so much stronger, the withdrawal is so much stronger. And I would figure that out soon after all this. So I'm homeless again. I am in and out of, you know, staying on people's couches, staying with whatever random chick I happen to be screwing, or some chick that, you know, I'm manipulating into thinking that I'm going to screw her, or thinking that I'm going to be with her, so she would let me stay at her house. And then, you know, once she put the pressure on, and it made me uncomfortable, because she wanted a relationship or wanted to have sex at a minimum, and that's not what I wanted, and I wouldn't give it to her. I would leave, and I would find the next person to take advantage of. So I ended up going to a homeless shelter, actually a bunch of different homeless shelters for a while. I was in and out of shelters for a whole summer. Well, like a spring and that whole summer. I had a little apartment on Mohawk Street off of Portland, which, if anybody knows that area, it's not a place you want to be if you're trying to stay clean. But luckily for me, I was not trying to stay clean. So now I have my own place where I don't have to answer to anybody. I can stay out as late as I want. I can come and go as I please. I can have people over. I can do whatever I want. So that is when, you know, me and that stripper chick got real cool. Because now she was doing the same thing. She had somewhere to live, but she was always in the city getting high. And so she would go cop her drugs, and then she'd come over to my house, and she'd give me drugs to get high off of, or sometimes I'd give her drugs to get high off of, and then we'd, you know, fool around for a couple hours, and then either she'd leave, or we'd either pass out, or more times than not, we were just so high that we'd be up for, you know, 3 days straight. I use her car and I drop her off at the strip club. She'd go make money, and then I'd use her car to either go boosting or just to drive around, shooting dope, getting high, just enjoying driving around. Then I'd pick her up from work, and we'd go cop, go back to my house, and the same thing. Well, part of the stipulation for DSS to pay for an apartment is you need to be doing X amount of recovery-related work, which for me was my inpatient or outpatient. I was going to Conifer back when they were on University Ave, 1500 University Ave, I think was the address. Now they're on Alexander, but that's like recent. They just did that like a year ago. So I was getting high so much that I stopped even caring about making an appearance at Conifer. I just stopped going. So once I stopped going, a month later, DSS sent me a letter and said, basically, you have until the 1st to get out. And that was like 3 days away. So I packed up all my shit. I stored it at various places. And for a couple days, I stayed at my dad's house in Webster. But that really was not working for me because being in Webster, it was very hard to get to the city to get dope. And more times than not, whenever I was in Webster, I was either dope sick or I would wake up dope sick. And I would have to beg my dad to drop me off in the city. And in order to not deal with, the judgment of, people know what you're doing when you go into their bathroom to piss or to take a shit and you're in there for, an hour and a half. People know what's going on. People aren't as stupid as us addicts like to think they are when we're getting high. We all think we're slick, but they know what's going on. Most times they just don't say anything because they don't want to deal with it. But in order for me to not deal with their mouth and to not be openly, blatantly disrespectful, and burn that bridge so I had nowhere to stay in the future, most of the time I would just spend my day in the city. I actually built a fort in the woods on the side of the cliff where I tried to kill myself, those however long, 2 or 3 years before that. And I slept there a couple times. I would sleep under bridges most of the time. Well, towards the end of it, my dad lived in Macedon with a friend of mine. And it was the same thing in Macedon. I was, most of the time I was there, I was dope sick. I would have to beg my dad for $20 and have him drop me off in the city. Or bring me to go cop. And most of the time I would tell him I was getting Suboxone, but I wouldn't because it was cheaper and way more effective to get heroin. Sometimes I really would get Suboxone, but most of the time I was just getting dope and telling him I was getting Suboxone. So one of the last nights of me getting high, I was staying with a friend of mine. I stayed there for like 2 nights before that, and she lived right on Dewey Ave. And that was perfect because she was an addict. Her boyfriend was an addict. They got high every day. They went boosting every day. And either I would go boosting with them, or I would find a ride and go boosting myself, or I would watch her daughter while they went boosting, and they would pay me in heroin for watching the kid. So October 17th, 2017, that morning, a friend of mine, Jamie, this girl's like my sister. Like, if there was a female version of me, it would be her. Like, she's literally like my sister. It's crazy how similar we are. And we grew up very different lifestyles. But personality-wise, she's just an awesome person. I love the shit out of her. She comes and picks me up. We go boosting. We go to well, I'm not going to say where. I don't want to, end up going to jail over this video. We go boosting at one store. We got high. We stole shit. We went to the pawn shop. We turned it all in. We had a bunch of money because my thing was whenever I went boosting, a lot of people like to go in and like check out the situation and make sure nobody's watching them and make sure they're in an aisle with no cameras and act like you're shopping and blah blah blah. And like, no, that's not my style. My style is way more of a in your face, go fuck yourself. If you want to do something about it, you can do it. We can see where it goes from there. So my style of boosting was I would walk into a store, I would load up either a shopping cart or a laundry bag or a laundry basket or just my hands with as many tools or electronics or high-priced items as I could possibly carry. And I would walk right out of the store with them in my hand, on camera, right, with people staring at me, most of the time people screaming at me. And I'd walk to a car, throw them in the car, and we'd take off. And that worked. That was my way of doing things, mostly because I didn't have the time or patience to sit there and try and be all sneaky. Also because I really didn't give a fuck if I got caught. I was so miserable in life, I just really didn't give a shit. And also because it worked. I walk right into a store, walk right up to the aisle. I know where things are already. I know what aisle they're in. I know where they are in the aisle. Walk right in, grab the shit, walk right out. I'm literally inside the store for a minute and a half. So by the time they even are on the phone calling security or calling the cops, I'm already out of the store. I already left. So we go do that. We copped, we pawned it, or we pawned the stuff, we copped. We had I had like $400 and like 5 grams of coke and like 8 bundles of dope. So I had a lot of drugs. But for some reason, both of us were in a place where we were in a place in our lives where we could not go out every single day to go boosting. I would have loved it if we could, but we just couldn't. She had obligations. She has a boyfriend and a family that, she was trying to hide her use from. I had just not a ride every day or, other things with stuff like that. So we came up with the brilliant idea that we were going to go out all day long and we were going to steal from stores all day long and go hit the pawn shop all day long until we had, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in our pockets each and, ounces of drugs. And that would have been enough to last us, maybe a week with the amount of drugs that I was doing. I was probably spending, on average, maybe $400 to $700 a day on drugs. And the only way that I was able to support a habit like that was because I was stealing that much from stores. So we decided we're going to go out all day. We drive to the Kohl's in Webster. And we shoot up in the parking lot. And we are so high that we don't realize what we're doing. And we walk into Kohl's, we get a shopping cart, and we just start loading stuff up in the shopping cart. And we plan on loading up all this expensive stuff and just walking out of the store with the shopping cart, same way we always do. But the difference was we were so high that we were inside that store for a good hour and a half. So I was in there for so long that my high was wearing down, almost to the point where I was starting to feel not quite dope sick, but with me, as soon as I'm not high, I start to feel dope sick. And it's not like it's actual dope sick, it's more just anxiety. But a huge part of being dope sick is the anxiety. So whenever I feel anxiety, I feel like I'm dope sick. So I was not high enough to where I was getting anxiety from not having drugs in my system. So I get her keys. My plan was to go out to the car, do more drugs, come back in, get the shopping cart, walk right out, and then continue our day. Instead, I walk out of the store to go out do all that, and there's about 15 Webster police standing right there waiting for me. So as soon as I walk out, they start screaming at me, "Don't you fucking run! Don't you fucking run!" But I didn't have anything on me. I didn't steal anything yet. Everything was in the cart inside. So why was I going to run? I wasn't doing anything illegal yet. So they knew why we were there. You know, we're so high that we made it blatantly obvious. Plus, about maybe a month before that, I was at the Kohl's in Greece, and luckily that time I also did not steal anything, but I went there to steal stuff, and I realized that it just wasn't feeling right. The dude looked at me like he recognized me when I walked in, so I didn't steal anything. I walked out, I got in the buddy's truck, and we go to pull away, and we get surrounded by cops. Well, he was actually trespassed from Kohl's prior to that. So since I was with him, and since I was there to steal, but they didn't arrest me because they couldn't prove that I was doing anything, and I didn't commit any crimes, so they couldn't do anything. But what they could do was trespass me from the store. So as soon as I walk into the Kohl's in Webster, their facial recognition picks me up. Boop. And I actually used my brother's name when they trespassed me from the Kohl's in Greece. So, you know, their little computer pops up, bing, Nick Stagnito is in the store and he's not supposed to be. They call the cops show up. So now the cops are calling me Nick. So now I'm thinking, fuck, if I tell them my real name, now I'm going to get all sorts of extra charges pushed on me because of the first time that I used someone else's name. So now I have to play along that I'm Nick. And on top of that, I'm hoping that since Nick doesn't have a criminal record, they're just going to give me an appearance ticket and let me go. And I'd be able to keep getting high. I still had a ton of drugs and a ton of money. So they take us down to the police station. They fingerprint us. And then we are on the way to court to be arraigned because they're felonies. We got arrested for grand larceny. And I got arrested for third-degree burglary. While we're on the way to the courthouse, the dude's radio goes off. I can't hear him because the music is on in the car, and he has the little sliding window shut. Making sure it's still recording. So he opens up the sliding door, and he's like, "Hey, so what's your real name?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "That's not your real name. We just ran your fingerprints. You should have known we were going to get your real name." I was like, "Man, you know what my real name is then." But I still wasn't going to admit to anything just in case he was fucking with me. I was like, "You know what my real name is." He was like, "Okay, your name is Josh, right?" And now, obviously, he knows who I really am, so he proved that. So I said, "Yeah, my name's Josh." So now when I get to the courthouse, now they also add on the charge of criminal impersonation. So now 2 more felonies and a Class A misdemeanor and some other stuff. So basically they set my bail at, I forget how much, 50,000 or 100,000, something like that. They bring me to jail, and luckily because I knew what the life that I was living, I knew that I was going to be getting caught sometime soon. I was kind of wanting to get caught. It was either get caught or be dead. And it was actually funny because I was planning in my head once again to come up with the right time and place, and I was going to kill myself. But this time it was going to be, 50 bags of heroin and a needle and shot straight into my neck. And I was going to do everything in my power to kill myself. And that was going to be coming up very soon. It might have actually been that day that I did it. So since I knew I was going to be getting caught, I had 12 Suboxone in a piece of plastic in my sock, all sealed together, and I just left it in there. Every time I changed my socks, I would pull the Suboxone out and I'd slide it into the new pair of socks. So I thought, luckily, I got these Suboxone on me. I'm not going to be that sick. Well, nope. So by the time we got to jail, it was around, late afternoon. So that first day, I feel kind of fine. I'm not sick. I have anxiety, but I mostly just feel numb I just feel like I don't give a shit. The next morning, it was not, they say to wait 24 hours from the last time that you did heroin or opiates, any opiate, till the time that you take Suboxone, because it will put you in precipitated withdrawal. And it was not 24 hours. It was probably about maybe 20. I'll say it was 20 hours since the last time I used. And it wasn't, or at least I shouldn't have been, dope sick quite yet. It was just real bad anxiety. It was like pre-dope sick, like yawning a lot and, not being able to sleep, stuff like that, but not quite full-fledged dope sick. So I'm thinking like, okay, I got all these Suboxone in my sock. Oh, and I had half a Subutex in my underwear that I just put there that morning, that they didn't find. So I didn't need to take anything. I should have waited longer, but I wanted to get high. I wanted to get high off of the Suboxone. So I crush up the half a Subutex on my sink in jail, rip off a piece of paper, roll up a little tube, and I sniff the half a Subutex. So I'm sitting there now, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this isn't going to be so horrible. I got these subs, I can just sit here high basically for, whatever. I can sit here high long enough to where maybe the bad part of being dope sick will be over with. So I lay back in my bed, stare at my ceiling, because there's nothing else to do when you're in jail. And I start to feel tingly. And I'm like, oh, cool, here it comes. Here it comes. I get to feel good. And then it starts to feel tingly in the wrong way. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? So basically, I put myself in precipitated withdrawal. And the fucked up part was, I've never been in precipitated withdrawal from fentanyl before. And usually, because I have been in precipitated withdrawal before. I've done dope really hard one night, and then the next morning shot a Suboxone, and that was fucking, oh my god, it was bad. But it lasted for like 20 minutes, half an hour. And then the buprenorphine, ripped all the fucking heroin off my brain receptors, and now it started to put itself back on in that spot. Now I'm feeling good again after, before. So I start to feel tingly, and I start to realize that I'm going into precipitated withdrawal. And so in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, it's only going to be half an hour at the most. It's only going to be half an hour. So I start to sweat. I start to get sweaty. My back starts to hurt. Everything starts to get painful. Like, if you've ever been in precipitated withdrawal, you know how bad it is. So I'm thinking, okay, I can take more Suboxone, and it'll just speed up the process of getting over the precipitated withdrawal, and I can start to actually feel the enjoyable parts of taking the Suboxone. I can feel high from it. So, long story short, I spent 5 straight days and nights in precipitated withdrawal in a cold cell laying on a concrete bed in Monroe County Jail. 5 days and 5 nights. I did not sleep. I did not eat. I drank very little water. And all I did was roll around in fucking pain, throw up, shit myself, or not myself, I shit in the toilet until I couldn't shit anymore. There was nothing left to throw up and there was nothing left to shit for 5 days. So about 2 days into it, the thought popped into my head like, yo, you can end all this pain right now. I'm like, you know what? You said you were gonna end your life. Like, right now is the perfect opportunity that you can end all this pain right now, and you could finally do what you said you were gonna do. It won't be this open page, you know, in a book. Just end the book. So I took my shoelaces out of my shoes and I tied them up so they were real strong. And I wrapped it around my neck. I made a noose. Put part of it on the ceiling. I stood on my toilet and hooked part of it into the ceiling. I waited till the cop did his rounds. As soon as he was done doing his rounds, and where I was in the jail, my cell was at like the end of this hallway. So there was zero chance of, you know, just random people walking by and seeing me. The only people that would have been walking by would be the cops, and they only walk by when they're doing their rounds, which is every 20 minutes. So 20 minutes of hanging there without, you know, oxygen to your brain is more than enough time for, you know, for it to work. So I tie it up. I step down off my toilet, and the pressure in my face, in my cheeks, and in my eyes, and in my upper part of my neck, in my ears, in my head, the pressure was so high that it was fucking excruciating. I've never experienced that type of pain before. I felt like every blood vessel and blood vein in my face and in my head, in my brain, and my eyeballs were about to pop and explode. It hurt so fucking bad that I had to stop. I could not hang there long enough for me to get dizzy and pass out. That's how bad it hurt. So I get down, I take the rope down, I throw my shoelaces on top of my shoes, and I wrap myself back up in my blanket because I'm freezing. I'm freezing and I'm pouring sweat. I feel like I'm being boiled alive. And I'm in this glass, you know, jail cell. It felt like I was in a fish tank being boiled the fuck alive. So maybe not long after, maybe an hour, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it this time, and I'm gonna actually do it. I don't care how bad it hurts. I'm just gonna sit there. Eventually, I'm gonna start getting dizzy, and once I start getting dizzy, I'll know that I'm about to pass out, and that's gonna be the end of all this pain. It'll be the end of everything bad. It'll be the end of, you know, the neglect and everything that I've felt as a child. It'll be the end of all the heartbreak I've had over every girlfriend that ever fucked me over, or the couple that cheated on me, or, you know, the end of, you know, the people that I love most in the world betraying me. It'll be the end of, you know, no more pain over losing my kids, no more any of that. So this needs to happen. So I did the same setup again, except this time I hyperventilated myself so it would happen quicker. And I did it. I put the rope around the shoelace around my neck. I stepped down off my toilet, and I feel the dizziness start to come on. And I knew that at any second I was going to black out, and that was going to be the end. So everything starts getting blurry. Everything starts getting foggy and fuzzy. And I get more and more dizzy. And then I just stay that level of dizzy. And nothing's happening. I'm not blacking out. I'm not passing out. I'm just remaining at the same plateau of fogginess and dizziness. It's not getting any worse. I'm not dying. So, in my mind, that the only thing that could have possibly been was God. Because I should have been dead. It takes a couple seconds. You know, once you cut off that blood supply from your brain, it's a couple seconds and you're passed out. And I'm sitting there, not breathing, no blood going to my brain, for probably a good 30, 40 seconds, for however long I could hold my breath for. and it didn't work. So I put my shoelaces back in my shoes, and I continued to lay there with sweat pouring out of my body, tears running out of my face, with, yawning every 10 seconds, just literally rolling around in agony. And eventually, they put me on a floor. They put me in the mess dorm. And I talked to my lawyer maybe a day or two later, and the first thing I said was, because I already knew I was fucked. I already knew I was absolutely fucked. And I walk up to him, I sit down, and I say, "So, how long am I going to prison for?" And he said, "Well, there's an offer on the table right now for 3.5 to 7, but you are, there's an offer of 3.5 to 7, but I am going to try to push for drug court. Would you be interested in that?" And in my head, I was thinking, like, instead of going to prison for 7 years, you're going to let me back out on the street so I can go get high again? I was like, abso-fucking-lutely. So, long story short, I was in jail for like 3 or 4 months. I actually ended up being the head trustee. I had my own cell because it's a dorm. There's very few cells there, but I had my own private cell. I was running the poker tables. I was, well, I don't think they can get me in trouble for it now. I was having Suboxone brought in and selling that. Having weed brought in, selling that, cigarettes. So I was actually living like a king when I was in there this past time. Always had commissary. We had a good little crew of people in there this time. Like, there's always going to be the people that you're beefing with, but it was decent people in there this time. Only a couple of knuckleheads. A lot of arguments, a lot of almost fights. One actual, well, maybe 2 or 3 actual fights, but 2 of them, they were quick. So basically, once I realized that what was going to be asked of me for drug court, I realized that I was going to actually have to try to stay clean. So they brought me from jail to Norris Clinic. I was in Norris for 98 days. I went from Norris to the Alexander House, and I was there for a couple months. And now I am in supportive living in East House. That's actually where I am right now. This is Manor Parkway. I have the big bedroom. Now, today's date is Wednesday, October 31st. Oh, it's Halloween. I have a year and 2 weeks, exactly. A year and 2 weeks clean. And somewhere in this past year and a half, or year and 2 weeks, a year and a half, a month, my mind changed about a lot of things. At first it was, I'll take drug court just so I can get out, so I can get high. And then it was, well, maybe I'll at least try to stay clean this time. And then it was like, wow, it's actually not that difficult to be clean. I'll use again in the future, but right now it feels good to have this little bit of clean time. And now my mindset is, I love being clean. I am right now back to, for the most part, who I was before I ever started doing drugs. like there's still the, once in a while I do get cravings, and there's always going to be aspects there of addiction that are going to be sticking with me for the rest of my life, and I understand that, and that's why you have to remain vigilant. It's not once you have X amount of clean time, you're done. You're done. You're recovered. You're healed. You're fixed, and you're never gonna have to worry about it again. Like, no, you have to fight every day, every single day to stay clean. And I do. Sometimes it's not a fight. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes it's a fight. But I'm clean, and I enjoy being clean. I'm building computers again. I'm building computers for friends or for family. I just bought a really nasty stereo with two 15-inch subwoofers. Actually, that's right here. I don't know if you could see it, but I own 5 computers today. I have that nasty stereo that pumps. Oh, it pumps so hard. That will shake my entire house when it's on an eighth of the volume. It will rattle my windows until I think they're going to break. I'm sure my neighbors upstairs love that. I'm making music again. I have my MIDI controller. I bought a safe. That was actually donated to me, but I'm getting my computer parts back up. That's my main tower. Dual 1080p monitors. Awesome mouse and keyboard combo. Everything that I love, I'm getting back. Which makes it very easy to be clean and happy, because I appreciate where I was, and I appreciate where I am now. Wow. This has been an hour and a half, holy shit. Coming from a pretty horrible life to trying to mask the pain and the hurt with drugs, to almost dying several times, not even including the extremely sketchy situations that I put myself in almost every single day. Walking around in the hood, in bad parts of the hood, trying to find new dealers or try to talk somebody into giving me samples, or trying to take my own life a couple times, for some reason never successfully. And now to where I am today, with where I am in my head, the amount of stuff that I've been able to reacquire. For the most part, I'm happy. Obviously there's still a lot, there's still all that stuff in my past, there's still that hole in my soul, and there's still a hole in my heart. But God is doing a lot to fill that. And it's really only because of God that I was able to come anywhere near better. Like, I should be dead right now. I should be dead, and if not dead, in prison. But instead, I'm happy. Out in the world, free. I'm sober. Spending my time building computers and making music and doing stuff that I enjoy doing. I see my nephew all the time. I see my oldest son a lot. Obviously nowhere near as much as I would like to, but I do see him. And that was a huge a huge part of fixing my heart and my soul is seeing my son again. The loss of my brother Tony is still a crippling pain. And recently, on September 26th, I get a call from my dad, or a text from my dad, but I didn't even notice that he texted me. And then I get a call from my brother Nick, and I got informed that my other little brother Joe was found dead in his house of an overdose. And the very first thing that I thought when I heard that was, fuck it, I'm going to get high. That was the very first thing that popped into my head. It's real easy for me to say fuck it. But I didn't. And this is the first time I've ever had to deal with something so tragic and agonizing sober. But I am. I don't know how, but I am. And that's going to be the plan. To stay sober and to stay clean no matter what happens. Because I am on drug court. I'm on felony drug court. And not only will I go to prison if I start using again, because I'll violate drug court and they're going to throw me in prison. Because that's what my contract says. If I fuck up drug court, I get 2 to 4. But obviously that's a huge motivation to stay clean because I don't feel like going to prison. Been there, did that, kept the t-shirt. Not somewhere I want to be. But it's more than that. It's mostly the fact that I enjoy who I am today. I know me. I know me very well. And who I am is the type of person who has used all the hurt and the pain and the letdowns and the betrayals and the heartaches and the heartbreaks, and use all that for good rather than turning bitter and saying fuck the world and just turning into a piece of shit. Right now, that's not who I am in my heart. I've been a piece of shit in the past. I didn't enjoy it. I'd rather be a good person. I would rather help people. So with the amount of experience I have in tragedy, I figured it was only right for me to try to at least plant the seed in someone's head to get clean. And that's the point and the purpose of this channel and the Facebook group and the soon-to-be vlog website that's coming, is to help people. To help you, possibly, if you're an addict. I'm definitely not perfect, not even remotely close. But whatever I'm doing is working. And I want to share that with other people. I want to show people that no matter how fucked up your life is, no matter how big of a soul it is in your heart that you're trying to fill with drugs, it is possible to live another way. We don't need to suffer. Because that's all addiction is. It's suffering. It stopped being fun a long time ago. Yep. Almost 2 hours later, I think that's going to sum up the rest of this story. I think I covered a good amount. There's obviously a lot that I left out because I was trying to save time and not make these videos 3 hours long, but the first one was an hour and this one is almost 2 hours, so it was 3 hours long anyway. So if you were able to make it through this whole thing, I applaud you. Guys, I definitely know it's not easy to sit there for 3 hours and stare at my face and listen to bullshit. You know, I'm sure you'd rather want to be on YouTube watching music videos or playing some type of video game or something like that, but you stuck around, and that's awesome. That means a lot. That means more than I can even describe. It lets me know every time someone subscribes to my channel or likes a video or leaves a comment on Facebook or on YouTube or something like that, it lets me know that people are benefiting from hearing my story. Whether it's someone that got clean or someone that got motivated to get clean or, you know, someone that was just, you know, appreciated the story. It's whenever I hear or see somebody responding to it, it lets me know that you guys care, and that's the whole point. I want to help as many people as I possibly can, and there's not really all that many ways that I can do that. Like I spoke at schools a couple times, and you know, done stuff like that, and I go to meetings and I volunteer places and do stuff like that, but I don't ever feel like that's really getting to the core of whatever, of addiction, of addicts, of that lifestyle. That's pretty much just all superficial shit, in my opinion. If anyone's going to sit down for 3 hours and listen to a story and then afterwards be motivated to get clean or stay clean or help others to get clean, that's, in my opinion, that's what it's all about. That's where it helps. That's where I'm the best at helping people. As you now know, I have had a very shitty life. So if I can go through all that and now today be clean and sober, and over a year clean and sober, like, that blows my mind. A year. A year ago today, I was sitting in jail, still a little bit dope sick, thinking I'm going to prison. But that's all. I'm going to end this video now. I hope somebody sees this, maybe in 20 years somebody sees it and they can appreciate it. Maybe it helps somebody get clean one day. And if this helps even one person get clean, then it was worth it. All the embarrassing shit that I talk about. Me being very straightforward, no edits, no scripts. I think that somebody somewhere is going to appreciate that. I think that's going to help somewhere. So, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for sticking around for 3 agonizing hours. Stay strong. Stay safe. Love you guys.